Illinois mayor is getting national attention for the way that she's spending taxpayer dollars.
WGN Investigates has learned South suburban politician Tiffany Henyard has lost another key ally. Until recently, Henyard enjoyed near unanimous support on the Dolton Township Board, but now trustee Carmen Carlisle says after trusting Henyard and remaining silent, she will be a whistleblower against Henyard.
Has information that indicates the FBI has launched an investigation into controversial Dolton mayor and Dolton Township.
A startling turn of events unfolded when the FBI raided the home of Tiffany Henyard Dolton, the self-proclaimed super mayor of Dolton, and uncovered millions of dollars hidden away, an amount that seemed more in line with a blockbuster crime story than the reality of local politics. What began as the tale of a small-town leader promising to bring change and prosperity has morphed into an unfolding scandal of extravagant living funded by public money. Henyard, who often flaunted her title and claimed the status of a larger-than-life figure, now faces difficult questions regarding her lavish lifestyle, which included lavish vacations, designer shopping sprees, and even the construction of a $500,000 driveway for her mother, all allegedly funded by the very people she was supposed to serve. The discovery has cast a dark shadow over her tenure and revealed a pattern of financial recklessness that has left her town of Dolton drowning in debt. Henyard's rise to power was swift and dramatic, leading many to initially speculate about her appointment and the circumstances surrounding her becoming the mayor. In 2021, following the unexpected death of former mayor Frank Zarelli, Henyard was appointed to the role. At first, her appointment was met with some unending financial crisis, only exacerbated the situation. The town, under her leadership, has racked up an enormous $3.5 million in debt, and the mayor, who was supposed to alleviate the community's struggles, is now under scrutiny for using sprees in high-end designer stores and luxurious dining experiences that seemed out of place for a public servant. Perhaps the most shocking revelation was her $500,000 driveway, which she commissioned for her mother, a project that seemed to be entirely funded by taxpayer dollars. It wasn't long before questions began to arise regarding the source of Henyard's wealth. A federal investigation was launched to probe her spending habits, and the findings were staggering. Hidden in Henyard's home were millions of dollars, a discovery that raised suspicions of embezzlement and misappropriation of public funds. This revelation has left residents of Dolton stunned as they try to reconcile the woman they once admired with the scandal that has unfolded. How could the mayor of their town have concealed such vast sums of money, all while the town itself was falling into financial ruin? The fallout from these revelations has been swift. Henyard's credibility has been shattered, and her promises to revitalize Dolton have been called into question. She had promised to secure funding for housing for veterans and seniors, as well as new developments to improve the local economy. But these promises were quickly overshadowed by her questionable financial practices, while Henyard's rhetoric reality was a stark contrast. The town's budget was spiraling out of control, and Henyard's lavish lifestyle funded at the expense of the very community she had sworn to serve. One of the more troubling aspects of Henyard's tenure was the operation of her so-called charity, the Henyard Care Foundation, which she touted as a charitable organization dedicated to supporting breast cancer research and offering assistance to those affected by the disease. Initially, the charity seemed like a noble cause, and Henyard's connection to it only enhanced her public image as a compassionate leader. However, as investigations into her finances revealed that the foundation was not as altruistic as it appeared, the charity had received substantial donations, many of which were funded directly by taxpayer money. Residents of Dolton were unknowingly contributing to this foundation, which not only failed to deliver the promised charitable benefits, but also served as a vehicle for Henyard to further enrich herself. Her name was prominently featured in connection with the charity, and many of the donations appeared to have been funneled back into her personal accounts. This discovery has left many residents feeling betrayed, as they now realize that their hard-earned money was being used to support a lavish lifestyle rather than benefiting the causes Henyard had promised to champion. Throughout her time as mayor, Henyard faced mounting criticism from various quarters. Many of her critics accused her of using her position of power to line her own pockets, while the town continued to face financial hardship. The backlash grew as Henyard's refusal to answer questions from the media and public intensified. Her response to criticism was swift and often hostile. Those who dared to call her out or question her practices were swiftly silenced, often through legal threats or public smear campaigns. Henyard's handling of criticism seemed to mirror her leadership style, domineering, aggressive, and willing to go to any lengths to protect her interests. Her critics were not limited to political opponents. Even residents of Dolton who had once supported her began to question her motives. Many were troubled by the fact that she seemed more focused on her own personal wealth and luxury than on the well-being of the town. The promises she made about revitalizing Dolton and tackling its economic struggles now appeared to be little more than empty rhetoric designed to placate the public while she continued to indulge in a life of excess. As the FBI's investigation into Henyard's finances continues, the people of Dolton are left grappling with the fallout. Their town, once hopeful about the future under Henyard's leadership, is now facing the reality of its massive debt and a lack of trust in its government. What was meant to be a promising era of growth and prosperity for Dolton has been overshadowed by scandal and financial ruin. While Henyard's future remains uncertain, one thing is clear: her actions have had a lasting impact on Dolton. The town, once a symbol of hope and progress, now stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of a leader more focused on personal gain than public service. The FBI's raid on Henyard's home is just the beginning of what promises to be a lengthy and high-profile investigation. As more details emerge, the true extent of Henyard's corruption may come to light. But for now, the town of Dolton is left to pick up the pieces of a broken system, wondering how they ever allowed a figure like Henyard to rise to power in the first place. Ultimately, the story of Tiffany Henyard is a grim reminder of the dangers of political power when it is wielded irresponsibly and without what can be done to ensure that such a tragedy is never repeated. Only time will tell, in raising serious questions about her leadership. The first major red flag of Henyard's administration came early on, when it was revealed that in just 5 months, she had spent throughout the trip. To make matters worse, Henyard allegedly profited from the trip by selling branded t-shirts and hoodies, which were ordered using Dolton Township funds. When asked about the transactions, she refused to provide any explanation, fueling suspicions of mismanagement and self-interest. These actions, along with her increasingly extravagant lifestyle, raised serious questions about Henyard's priorities and whether she was using her position for personal gain rather than serving the public good. Henyard's obsession with self-promotion took her actions to an even more troubling level. One of the most egregious examples was her decision to plaster her face on large billboards around Dolton, not for the purposes of an election campaign, but to glorify herself. This use of public funds for personal branding caused widespread outrage. Many residents and critics argued that such actions not only blurred ethical lines but were outright illegal, as taxpayer money is supposed to be used for community improvement, not for boosting the image of a politician. Even seasoned political figures, accustomed to the murky nature of campaigning, were shocked by Henyard's behavior. They called it an overreach, a blatant misuse of her position to inflate her own ego at the expense of Dolton's struggling budget. While some of her supporters tried to justify her actions as ambitious leadership, the misappropriation of public funds for personal gain painted a troubling picture of an administration more concerned with building a political brand than addressing the needs of the community. Her actions exacerbated the financial troubles of a town already struggling with a drained budget, leading to mounting frustration among Dolton's residents. As if her lavish spending wasn't enough, Henyard took things a step further by assembling what could only be described as a personal army, a 24/7 security detail that followed her everywhere. This security team, which was more appropriate for a high-profile politician or a celebrity than for a small-town mayor, raised serious questions about her motivations. It was unclear why Henyard needed such extreme protection, especially given that Dolton is a relatively quiet town. The situation only became more perplexing when it was revealed that Henyard had paid this security detail exorbitant sums from Dolton's already tight budget. Reports indicate that the security team earned nearly $113,000 for just one pay period, working a staggering 303 hours, a figure that seems highly inflated and questionable. Over the course of her tenure, Henyard's security detail is reported to have cost Dolton more than $1 million. This was money that could have been spent on much-needed public services, but instead it went toward funding Henyard's personal protection. Meanwhile, the town itself was sinking deeper into debt, struggling to make ends meet while Henyard continued to live like royalty. Her spending habits went beyond just Henyard's demand for protection reached the point where she allegedly dismissed the police chief after he refused to comply with her requests. This dismissal left many locals embarrassed and shocked by the extreme measures she was willing to take to maintain control over her administration. The community that she was supposed to serve was left reeling as Henyard's actions, both extravagant and authoritarian, took a toll on the town's resources. Henyard's reign was not only characterized by financial misconduct, but also by a pattern of retaliation against anyone who dared to stand up to her. Employees who refused to participate in her schemes or criticize her administration faced serious consequences, including the revocation of business licenses and the firing of employees. This authoritarian approach created a climate of fear and intimidation that permeated the town's government, where dissent was not tolerated, and those who spoke out against Henyard found themselves punished. One high-profile case involved longtime Dolton Township employee Boying Thrash, who claims he was fired after refusing to participate in Henyard's alleged efforts to replace a town attorney with someone she preferred. Despite being offered a substantial $100,000 pay increase to comply medical leave as punishment for speaking out. The situation became even more extreme when Henyard allegedly pushed workers to spy on her critics and gather information on her political opponents. Reports of employees being forced to gather intelligence on Henyard's detractors raised the stakes in this already troubling situation. What was once a case of financial mismanagement had now spiraled into something far more sinister in a political war waged from the mayor's office, with Henyard at the center. Henyard maintained her innocence throughout these controversies, claiming during a heated village board meeting that she was the victim of a smear campaign. She argued that her community was under attack and that she would defend herself against these false accusations. However, the statistics and evidence painted a different picture, and Henyard's attempts to deflect blame only further damaged her credibility. As the town's finances continued to unravel, with Dolton facing a $2 million deficit, the pressure on Henyard grew. Since Henyard took office, Dolton's financial situation to deny responsibility for the mess, claiming she was misinformed about the financial decisions made on her watch. Her claims of innocence have done little to quiet the growing chorus of critics, with many in Dolton pointing the finger directly at her. As the financial crisis deepens, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has been called in to investigate Henyard's spending. Lightfoot, known for her no-nonsense approach to corruption, has reportedly uncovered shocking details about Henyard's financial mismanagement, enough to make even the most seasoned investigators' heads spin. The FBI is now involved in a full-scale investigation into Henyard's finances, and the agency has begun tearing through her records, searching for evidence of corruption, wire fraud, and embezzlement. During a raid on Henyard's home, agents discovered large sums of cash hidden away in what can only be described as a scene straight out of a heist movie. While the exact amount of money is still under investigation, it is clear that Henyard's financial dealings are far more complex and troubling than anyone had initially suspected. This investigation has revealed not only financial misconduct, but also potential criminal activity, including the misappropriation of public funds and possible fraud. As the FBI delves deeper into her records, the scope of Henyard's alleged crimes is only beginning to come into focus. This marks the beginning of what promises to be a lengthy and high-profile investigation, with the potential to send Henyard from City Hall to a prison cell. For Dolton, the immediate priority is to clean house. The town needs new leadership, someone capable of restoring order and ensuring that such financial mismanagement never happens again. State funds have been frozen, and the town is under intense scrutiny. The FBI is investigating everything from wire fraud to embezzlement, and Henyard's future looks increasingly uncertain. Dolton's residents, who once hoped for a brighter future under Henyard's leadership, are now left to pick up the pieces. The town needs a new beginning, but that will be difficult to achieve with the legacy of Henyard's corruption hanging over them. The question remains, how did Dolton allow a figure like Henyard to rise to power, and what can be done to ensure this kind of financial disaster is never repeated? As the investigation continues, the people of Dolton can only hope that justice will be served and that their town will be able to recover from the damage done by a mayor who prioritized her own wealth and power over the needs of her community.